All right, last but certainly not least, we have our hydrologic cycle or our water cycle. This is one that you should be pretty familiar with. You've seen it many times before in classes before this. So water cycle, hopefully this one will be mostly review for you. So our water or our hydrologic cycle has three major processes. Evaporation, where it goes from liquid to gas, precipitation, where it goes the other way, transpiration, where plants release the water into the air. We have human impacts on our water cycle. Obviously, we impact everything. That's what we're best at. And so the way that we are influencing our water cycle is we are withdrawing and using up a ton of fresh water. So we're using up fresh water at rates that are higher than nature can replace it. We are demanding a lot of our freshwater resources right now. Anytime we clear vegetation, if we remove a forest or a natural vegetal barrier, that changes the way that the water flows and where it runs off and what it brings with it. And then we also have increased flooding when we drain our wetlands. So, like in Charleston here, when we build all of our neighborhoods, like my house is on the Church Creek Reservoir, it is we're filling in a wetland. So when it floods, of course it flooded. That's what this place naturally does. So we modify our flooding impacts when we drain the wetlands, when we make impermeable surfaces that can't absorb water. All right, so this looks maybe a little bit different than the water cycles you've seen in the past. It's not just one circle, but it is still our same water cycle. So this should look somewhat familiar to you. We'll start with the ocean. I love starting with the ocean. So in our water cycle, we have different kinds of aquatic biomes. We have our freshwater, our terrestrial land-based water aquatic biomes. Aquatic just means water, so aquatic includes both freshwater and saltwater, and then marine is specifically our salty water. So our marine biome down here, our ocean, is a gigantic source of water on Earth, obviously, covers about 75% of the Earth's surface. And so that water sink, that reservoir of our water, it is constantly evaporating and then it rains right back down after it condenses in the clouds. So over the ocean, there's constant cycling of water going on. And then on the coasts, that evaporation can also be brought over our land. So the condensation in the clouds can come over the land after the water leaves the ocean and rain down on us, precipitation onto land. It can run off into our reservoirs, our lakes, and our streams, and all of our terrestrial water sources. And then it can also be used by plants. So once it rains, it can hit the plants. They're going to transpire the water, put it right back out of their spiracles, of their little holes in the leaves. So they will transpire that water back up. It will condensate in the clouds and come back down and cycle and cycle and cycle. We have a couple of natural reservoirs, natural sinks that I haven't mentioned yet. So we mentioned the ocean, the lakes and reservoirs. The other two main ones are going to be ice and snow. So our glaciers, our caps on our mountains, those are going to hold a lot of water on Earth. And then the other one is our groundwater in aquifers. So aquifers are most of our freshwater sources. They are held down in the groundwater after it infiltrates and percolates through all of our soil here, all of our earth, our dirt here, down into the groundwater. And then we have our impacts too. So all of that groundwater and aquifers, we want it. We want to use it for agriculture. We want to use it to drink. We want to use it for, watering your lawn. So we are over pumping aquifers. We are reducing the amount of groundwater in our aquifers faster than this percolation and infiltration can happen to replenish our aquifers. In addition, when we use that water, we are using it in conjunction with other things. So like our phosphates that we saw in our phosphorus cycle, our fertilizers. So we have increased runoff that's going on. And that is increased because we have changed the landscape. We have taken away some of our natural barriers like our trees, our vegetal erosion barriers, our things that would hold that water. Instead, we have pavement that doesn't absorb any water. Rather than sinking into the soil and being available for plants and everything, it just runs off of that slick, impermeable surface. Same thing with buildings and pavements and crops. So when you lose all of those barriers, those physical barriers that plants provide, and you change the surface of the soil so that it can't absorb that water, you increase the runoff. So we're putting that runoff right back into the ocean, into our waterways, and with it, typically, we're also bringing pollution as well. So on this side, we have deforestation that's happening. That's another physical change that gets rid of those barriers to runoff. And so it's going to run off from deforestation. And then down here, we have our filled in wetland. Wetlands are natural sponges, basically. That's one of their ecosystem services. So as that wetland is filled in, it no longer has the capacity to hold all of that water. And so it's just going to flood and it's going to run off as well. All right, so that's our water cycle. Like I said, hopefully this is going to be mostly review. So hopefully none of that was too new. That was our last cycle that we're going to talk about for now. So you're done.